Tomorrow at 6 in the morning, family members and survivors of violent crime will board buses en route to the state capitol. Their goal is to bring more resources for crime victims to the state and to Jacksonville, which remains Florida's murder capital. I'm joined now by two women who've turned their personal experience with gun violence into activism. Beverly McClain, founder and CEO of Families of Slain Children. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Feletta Smith, founder and president of Beyond the Bullet. Good morning.
Good morning.
And to our listeners, have you or a loved one experienced violent crime? What resources do you believe are needed to help victims in the aftermath? Call us at 549-2937. Email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. Message us on Facebook and Instagram, or tag us on X at FCC On Air. Beverly McClain, remind us how and why you began this work nearly 20 years ago.
My son was a murder victim, and it was devastating. I was heartbroken for many years, and I heard the Lord tell me, you need to start something for other people that's going through the same thing you're going through. And that's what I did, and never knew it was going to grow like it did. Never had a clue.
This was in June 2005?
2023.
When your son was murdered.
Yeah.
In
we found his body.
June 23. I see what you're
Right.
saying. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Andre.
Andre Lynn Johnson.
And so your organization was intended initially to bring comfort and support.
Mm-hmm.
So you were initially located in a home on Myrtle Avenue. It was a condemned building that you renovated, and now you've got a new location
Right.
just kind of down the street from there.
Yes, thanks to Michael Ward and Jennifer Glatt, Foundation. They purchased this building for us, and thank God we have somewhere to go.
So the organization now is in this former credit union. It's in a whole new location. As you said, Michael Ward, former head of CSX Railroad here in Jacksonville,
Right.
has been a big supporter of the organization. Talk a little bit about the services that you provide.
Support. We have support group. They call it peer-on-peer support now. And we just there for families. Whatever they might be in need of, we try to support them in that. And if we don't have answers, we have other people around us that can help us.
What kind of needs did you have in the aftermath of losing your son that your organization aims to provide?
I just needed the support. Just somebody there to listen, not judge, not talk half of the time. Just there to listen, to hear what I had to say, how my feelings were going. And that's what we do. We're there for others.
And I imagine that the stories that you're hearing and the times that you're talking to the people that you're helping are really very difficult times.
It is. That's why we're in such need of this trauma support center.
So we'll talk about that, but I want to bring Feletta Smith into the conversation. You yourself were a victim of an incredibly violent crime. A man whose house you were at was shot and killed along with his son, and you were shot and almost killed. Tell us what you can about that.
Yes, I was visiting my friend, and I was shot 13 times. Him and his roommate got into an argument, and he killed him and his 13-year-old son and shot me 13 times. And I had to play dead to survive.
Because as you said, I think previously when we were talking, that he just kind of kept shooting.
Yes, he kept shooting.
This is a case some in the community will be familiar with. This was Garrick Stringfield, who was murdered, and his 13-year-old son, Philip Sims. He was a Mayport Middle School student, and he was playing video games.
Yes.
When he was killed. And do we know why he was killed?
He didn't want any witnesses left, is what he stated.
So the perpetrator of this crime, Thomas Bevel, has been going through trials and legal processes. This was 20 years ago?
Yes. It'll actually be 20 years, February 29th this year.
And describe what has happened both from the legal standpoint and just in your own recovery since then.
Well, for me, it's been since February 29th, 2004, when I was actually shot, and I was in the hospital for about 2 months. And when I got out of the hospital, I wasn't able to walk. I was in a wheelchair for 4 months. and just been going to court. I actually had a trial December 2022 because he was given 2 death sentences. Of course, he got life for attempted murder, but he got 2 death sentences that has been overturned a couple times, and he keep appealing and keep appealing. And we had a trial December 2022, and he got the death sentences again for both. And then again, he appealed. So in April of 2023, I had to go back to the Supreme Court. And again, they, denied his appeal. So we'll see what happens.
And so that most recent decision was just in October of 2023 from the Florida Supreme Court.
That was April
Oh,
2023.
April? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Did something happen in October of this last year?
No.
Okay. Perhaps I'm just confused. But at any rate, this has been an ongoing issue and an ongoing concern for you, and speaks somewhat to the difficulty of the death penalty for survivors of crime victims, in that it just continues and continues and continues.
Yes, because you have the option to appeal. And I know in my personal case, you wanted to say you were not competent to stand trial. We had to go through court about your competency. And then you say you had ineffective counsel. We had to go to court for your ineffective counsel. And it's just been going to court, over a 20-year period. And it just takes you back to the day that it actually happened.
To our listeners, we're talking about surviving violent crime and the need that the community has in recovering. You can call us at 549-2937. You can send an email to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org, or you can reach out via social media. So, Beverly McClain, tomorrow you are going to, with a number of other supporters and advocates, are going to be going to an event organized by Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice. We're expecting hundreds of people to be showing up in Tallahassee. What are you going there for, and what do you hope to accomplish?
It's a wonderful feeling to come together with other survivors. I never knew this was like this, and it's been 5 years now for me. And we go there and we support each other. We love on each other. We do therapy. I mean, it's just a great feeling to be around others like yourself. Because when you in the public, you don't know who's going through what. But when you meet people and talk to them and they tell you their story, then we can work together. We can help each other.
Do you have some specific legislative priorities? I know that you were talking about the need for a trauma center for victims and survivors of violent crime here in Jacksonville.
Yes, we have so many people for years that has lost loved ones. And we need a trauma recovery center. Every day we need a trauma recovery center for people to come to. People isolate in their houses. They go to the cemetery. They go to the funeral homes. I mean, every day people need support. And that's what we're there for.
And so a trauma recovery center would be a place where people could gather, where they could get some counseling. When you and I spoke about your own situation, I mean, you weren't able to access resources like that when you lost your son.
No, I wasn't.
What was available, if anything, at the time?
Nothing. Not a thing.
And so providing those avenues for people to connect is one of the things that your organization does do. Tell us a little bit about the wall, the memorial wall that you erected initially and is now at your new location. What is that meant to symbolize, and what names are on it now?
Oh, Lord, it's so many names, thousands of names. And I've literally had a young man come and put his blanket down there and lay down there. And he was saying how it gave him comfort to be close to his brother. Can you imagine what's going through his mind and others? I have people come up there all the time wanting to add a name.
This is now how many panels and close to 5,000 names of all victims.
Mm-hmm.
And so how far back does it go?
2006.
Is the first victim named there?
Yes.
Yeah. And so it is a place where people can come and pray and also just
Yeah.
kind of commemorate their loved ones. You've
Mhm.
had events there, rallies
We're
there.
always having something up there.
hmm And Felita, I think that one thing that is often lost in the conversation about, crime victims, homicide victims, is that, for every one of those victims, there's just an enormous community of people that are bereft, family members, siblings, as she says, the larger community. How do you convey to lawmakers kind of the ripple effect that a single act of violence can have?
Well, for me, I think because we don't have those services like when I got shot back in 2004. I didn't know anything about victim services. I didn't know anything about mental health services, relocation. For me, when I got out of the hospital, my offender was still on the run. And I went to my mom's house because I was scared to actually go back into my own home. And I thank God that I had a job where I had health benefits. I had a great job. I had short-term and long-term disability because as I stated, I didn't have access to anything. No one was there to talk to me about, just having counseling, just having those services, mental health, counseling. It would have helped, therapy, just somewhere to go, someone to talk to, even with the relocation that we're doing with the trauma recovery centers, just providing all of those services to people that need it. Because if you've lost someone, even if in my situation, me being the actual survivor, I needed that and it wasn't there.
And you had great need. You had a 5-year-old son at the time. You were in a
Yes.
wheelchair. You had a mortgage. You had a car payment that you needed to make.
Yes.
And all of those things really compound the trauma of trying to recover and take care of yourself and your family.
Yes, because I wasn't able to walk. I totally relied on my mother. And if it wasn't for the insurance that I had at my job at the time, I had to have a nurse come out. They had to come take me to the hospital. I couldn't do anything for myself at the time for the next 4 to 5 months after.
I want you to talk a little bit, too, just about the sense of vulnerability for a victim, survivor of a crime like this, because you actually were visited in the hospital in the ICU. Tell our listeners what happened.
Yes, when I first got to the hospital, of course, they had to pretty much bring me back to life. And when I got into intensive care and, after the surgeries I had to have, the first set of surgeries, I was visited by my offender's brother and cousin. And when they came in, they wanted to find out what I remembered, what I knew about where he was. And that in itself was scary, and I'm there and, being in intensive care where you can only have like 1 or 2 people in the room with you. They came in and they were talking and asking me if I knew where he was. And, I was like shaking my head because I had, all these wires and tubes and, things where I couldn't talk. And, from that point, I had a police officer there for the whole 2 months that I was in the hospital because they came, to visit me. And that was very scary.
It must have been terrifying. And so would you share this story with lawmakers when you go to a place like Tallahassee? Are you openly sharing your story? And what kind of reception do you get when you tell it?
Every chance I get, I need them to understand that we need these trauma recovery services in Jacksonville. And everybody is just like, just looking at it from the other side, because most of the things that we talk about and that we advocate for is people that have lost people. But when you're dealing with a person that has actually been the victim, that has experienced the trauma, it still be here to talk about it, because being shot 13 times with an AK-47, that's something different.
And you were saying that your recovery continues, that you, even as recently as last year, I believe?
Yes, I had surgery on my back because I have damaged vertebrae. I have rods and pins in both of my legs. I still have a bullet that's unable to be removed from my back. So, yes, I'm still having surgeries 20 years later. So, yes.
So the need is great, Beverly.
It is.
But you've had some victories. There was a new law that was approved just last year called Curtis's Law, and it really makes some headway in terms of the rights of victims and survivors of families who've survived. Talk about what that law is and what it does.
Well, with Curtis Law, Miss Patricia came to me
Patricia Ward.
Patricia Ward. She said, did you find out anything about your son's case? I never knew that it was just sitting in Melissa's office, Miss Nelson,
The state attorney.
the state attorney. I never knew, but she, Patricia Ward, got information for me to help me understand what, Curtis Law was and what I was going through and what I had to do.
So Patricia Ward is the mother of Curtis Williamson. He died in 1997 in Southern California, but she lives.
She lives here in Jacksonville, and she's a part of us. And see, that's why we come together. Because I don't know what you do, and you don't know what I do until we get to the table, put it out there, and we get a better understanding.
And so this new law mandates, for instance, that law enforcement agencies provide a name and contact information for the investigating officials so that you can call them and get an update on the case. That's new.
That's new.
And so when you were going through it, what kind of information did you have access to?
Nothing. No one came to me other than the detectives initially that came out, and help you and tell you, oh, he's dead. I never heard anything from anybody else.
That crime remains unsolved?
It's still unsolved.
So you work with Mad Dads, which is another advocacy group that fights, it works on crime prevention and education. And it really is a shocking statistic, but homicide is currently the leading cause of death for young black men in the country, about a third.
It's a shame, It's awful that young people are just killing one another. Don't make no sense. I can't even hardly comprehend where's all this coming from.
353 shootings in 2023 here in Jacksonville, with 38 victims under the age of 18. So young people are very much
angry. They're angry. Why? We need to find out. We need these trauma recovery centers to find out what's going on.
And so tomorrow you take off for Tallahassee. Ms. Feletta, what are you going to hope to accomplish? What is on your agenda personally?
Expanding Jacksonville communities to get the trauma recovery services that we need. We definitely need a trauma recovery center here. We need to get mental health services for our community to recover so we don't continue the cycle of victimization. If we don't get that help that we need, and like the young people, they need it. They need counseling. They need mental health services because mental health is something serious.
And Ms. McClain, you've been doing this a long time. Do you see movement in the right direction? Do you think that the legislature is more open to funding things like a trauma recovery center or services for survivors?
It's coming.
It's coming?
It's coming. No doubt. We need it. The people of Jacksonville need it, definitely.
You've had some earlier victories. I know that there was an effort to seal some arrest record and convictions at the local level if they didn't lead to convictions, I guess, arrest records, to help people move on and kind of find jobs. And that's also one of the agendas, one of the items that will be discussed is sort of criminal justice writ large.
Yes.
Well, good luck tomorrow in Tallahassee, both of you. I hope it's a successful day. Beverly McClain and Feletta Smith, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.